Good morning, good afternoon, and good night. Welcome back to the In the Cut podcast with your main man, Caleb Carter. It's been a while since we heard that, but hey, it's always good to be back. So, like to get this out of the way, as always. If you've been here, if you're familiar with this, then you know the drill. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter at the In the Cut Show for all your happenings with this podcast. Hey, look, I know I say this a lot, but look, I'm gonna be more consistent, and here's why. Here's why. I have reason to be, because as you all know, if you are a regular of this podcast, then your boy has been grinding a master's degree for the past year. Shout out to USC, the University of Southern California. Fight on. Your boy has just graduated with his master's degree, a in specialized journalism. Shout out to USC Annenberg. So that has what has been going on for the past year. But as you know, so I've been kind of getting through all of that, kind of getting myself settled back here in the hometown of Houston, Texas, and also just looking for jobs and trying to make connections and just trying to make that next phase of life happen, right? So to that point, just spent some time out there in Cleveland, Ohio. Shout out to Cleveland, by the way. Let me tell you, Cleveland gets a lot of bad press. I mean, Joakim Noah said, long time ago that, basically what is there to do in Cleveland? Look, let me tell you, Joakim Noah, there's a lot to do in Cleveland. Cleveland is really one of the most underrated cities in the United States. And look, I haven't been to every city, but I've been to quite a few. And Cleveland has great nature, right? I mean, I don't think the food was all that great, I'll be honest. But it has, a good nightlife scene. Of course, great sports fandom. The Brown Stadium, that Cleveland Cavalier Stadium, which I was able to get a tour of. Man, that thing is fantastic. Then you have the Guardian Stadium all in the same area. Cleveland, man, I got to tell you, people are really sleeping on Cleveland as a city. But I was out there for NABJ, the National Association of Black Journalists, my first time attending that event, and it was a great event. Let me tell you, it was a great event to be able to participate in the career fair, speak to numerous different companies and their representatives, and hear all the things that they had to offer, but also just be surrounded by Black excellence in the journalism field. I mean, it isn't all the time where you get to see so many people who look like you, who are also in the same field as you, excelling and are willing to give you some great tips and tricks about the trade. And I was able to see guys like David Aldridge, J.A. Adonde, Mark Spears. I mean, they're two different people. Kimberly Martin, can't think of her name. Monica McNutt, Stephen A. Smith. I mean, it was just a who's who of personalities in the journalism world. And let me tell you, for those who don't know, I'm gonna give you a little bit of lore about myself. Stephen A. Smith is one of the biggest reasons why I'm in this business and why I pursued journalism to begin with. And let me tell you, I want to say I was in around the fifth grade when it was 2013, and the Miami Heat and the San Antonio Spurs were playing in the NBA Finals. And it was around that time that I had the game NBA 2K13. And because I was so into that game, that video game, I began to watch real life basketball because I just became so enamored with the sport. And proceeding from that, I mean, I just began to watch sports television, right? And then Sport First Take on ESPN was always on. It was during the summer, so I had the time to watch it, and you had guys like Stephen A. Smith and Skip Bayless going back and forth, arguing their points. And to be honest, that lit the fire that is within me right now. So I credit Stephen A. Smith. It was honestly a surreal moment being able to meet him and just kind of grasp some of the nuggets that he had to offer to not only myself, but all the other journalists there who were able to kind of sit and speak with him. But outside of that, that has been kind of the past few months. Also, I forgot to mention, and how could I forget to mention? Let me tell you, Go to ESPN Houston if you're listening to this. Go to ESPN Houston 97.5, 92.5, 97.5, 92.5 ESPN Houston. Go to that on YouTube and scroll back, I want to say until late June, early July, and then you will see myself along with Charles Carter, my older brother, the host of the Break Room podcast. We made some appearances on the Mean Gene Show with ESPN Radio in Houston. And let me tell you, that was also a dream come true. It was also a prayer answered. I mean, I'll share another story, basically story time with Caleb Carter today, apparently. But before I went off to USC, so this was summer of 2024. I went on a mission trip with my school church group. Shout out to Prairie View and Chi Alpha. Went on a mission trip with that church group, but we stayed here local in Houston and helped some of the underserved communities here. But we stayed at a hotel in close to the Galleria area. And at that hotel, it was cat a corner to where ESPN radio was broadcasting their shows. I knew this because my older brother was a producer for ESPN radio. So I'd become familiar with the building. I knew where it was, and I recognized it when I was staying at the hotel. I went out to my car during that mission trip at the hotel to get something, and I remember just going out into the parking garage and looking at the ESPN radio building and kind of I was stretching my hands and I began praying. I said, God, if this is something that you would have me to do, I would love to be able to do a show, really just love to be employed at that radio station. And then a year later, look at that, I was able to do a show on that platform. So that was amazing and just another surreal experience. So that has been the summer, graduating, doing ESPN only twice, but you never know. And then going out to NABJ. Also spent a little time back in LA doing some other things. And I know what you're saying. You're probably like, Caleb, what are you even saying on this for? I'm basically telling you why I haven't done a podcast since, I don't know, April. So that's why. However, past all of that, a lot has also happened in the sports world. So we'll get this out of the way quick. The Oklahoma City Thunder are your 2025 champions. And can I say this? Look, I know one of my earlier podcasts that did pretty well was me talking about how the NFL has conquered the NBA in terms of arresting my attention. I thought that the NBA at the time had done a poor job marketing their players, and the product on the floor just didn't seem to be connecting with the fans. Not only, I mean, just connecting with me personally. But I'll say this, I had to eat my words these NBA playoffs because I really enjoyed almost every round. I mean, every round there was something to like. I mean, you had the Nuggets going up against the Clippers. That went 7. You had the Rockets against the Warriors. And we'll get into my Rockets sometime in the future because, look, let me tell you, shout out to KD. We finna make some noise in the Western Conference, my Rockets are. But they go down to the Warriors in the playoffs. And then in the next round, that's when, the Thunder and the Nuggets have their 7-game series. And then you get the Knicks versus the Celtics. You get the Pacers versus the Cavs. The Cavs are injured, but Tyrese Halliburton has his buzzer beater in game 2. And that's when he puts the world on notice because at that time, that's his second game winning shot in the playoffs. So now our attention has been arrested for the Indiana Pacers. And then we get to the conference finals. And I don't know about you, but I mean, I wasn't really paying attention to the Western Conference Finals because, I mean, the Thunder ended up blowing out the Timberwolves 4-1, gentleman's sweep. So that was pretty easy conclusion. However, that Pacers Knicks series, I don't know what it was. Maybe it was, the Knicks fans going crazy on the internet, but it just was cinema to watch, right? I mean, Halliburton I think it was game 1, hits that game tying shot to go to overtime. I mean, does the choke sign prematurely, but still, I mean, from then on, it just had my attention. and they end up beating the Knicks in 6. Then we get to the NBA Finals, and if you were like me, I said this on ESPN radio at the time. I said, hey, look, whoever comes out of the Eastern Conference Finals, you might as well just hand the trophy to OKC and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander because, it's already over. I felt like the OKC Thunder were the most dominant team in the league, and I feel like whoever came out of the East didn't really have a chance. Little did I know that the Indiana Pacers would push them to 7. Pushed them to 7 games, and had it not been for an early first quarter injury, Tyrese Halliburton goes down with an ACL, we might have the Indiana Pacers as our NBA champions for the year because Halliburton, he was going off in that first quarter. But he does go down, and we wind up with OKC winning that series. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, what a year for him. Dude had won the MVP, NBA champion, and NBA Finals MVP. So that was our basketball season. But now we get into the good part. Because look, as great as the NBA playoffs were, and I had to eat a little bit of crow talking about them in comparison to the excitement that comes from football, let me tell you, I didn't have to eat that much because football is still king in America. Football is still king in my heart because I cannot wait for it to come back. We're just a couple days away from the beginning of the college football and NFL seasons, and the Associated Press has released their first top 25 of the year, and we have Texas at number 1. UT, finally, it looks like Texas is actually back, and we can say that proudly. And I think deservedly so. I mean, I think if we watched that season last year, I think we all can admit that Texas was on the upper echelon when it comes to roster construction and just overall talent for a team, right? I do think that their quarterback was holding them back. I thought that Quinn Ewers was not the guy to get them to the promised land, and eventually that ended up being the case as they lost that game to Ohio State. But they're ranked number 1. And at number 2, here's where people have a problem. Here's where I think I have a problem. Number 2, we have Penn State. And below them, we have Ohio State, the reigning national champions. And I get it, right? I mean, Ohio State loses their quarterback. They lose a couple of key players to the NFL. But I'm sorry. The way that Ohio State ran through the college football playoffs, I have to honor that by placing them at number 2. And here's even more reason to do so. You have probably the best defensive player, if not the best player in this upcoming year's draft, in Caleb Downs on your team. You have easily the best receiver in the country, possibly the best player in the 2 years from now draft coming up in Jeremiah Smith on your team, yet somehow you're ranked below Penn State. And here's the thing about Penn State, right? They bring back Drew Aller at quarterback, and I think, it was a really well-rounded team, but you lose Abdul Carter. You lose a couple of other key pieces, and we saw Penn State and Ohio State square off against one another at Beaver Stadium. And we saw, I just can't get this out of my mind, Penn State, I think it was down at the goal line. I want to say it was within the 5-yard line. They had 4 chances to punch it in on Ohio State, could not get it done. I'm sorry. It's hard for me to get that image out of my mind. So, shout out to Penn State. I think Penn State has been knocking on the door for some time now, and I think this expanded playoff really allows them to flourish. However, James Franklin, as good as he is as a coach, I would like to see him get over that Ohio State hump before I'm able to just put them at number 2. And then after that, just rounding out the top 5, you have Clemson and you have Georgia. Georgia, we already know why they're there. I mean, they're the only team to beat Texas twice. So you have to honor that. I mean, Kirby Smart, the man is a football machine down there in Georgia. So they have earned that right to be placed at number 5. Clemson, here's my thing. And I think I've been a little bit unfair to Clemson's quarterback, Cade Klubnik, because for some reason, I'm not sure why, but it feels like Cade Klubnik has been around like forever. Like I feel like he's a super senior, but I checked and he's only this is only his junior year, so he's positioned to lead those Clemson Tigers to a good year. Dabo Sweeney, I think they have begun to see the error of their ways when it comes to the transfer portal because hey, look, in this new college football landscape that we live in, if you don't get high quality players out the transfer portal and let them play, buddy, you're gonna be left behind when it comes to like schools like Texas, Georgia, Penn State, Ohio State. You're gonna be left behind, right? So hopefully Dabo Sweeney has, left that antiquated mindset back in Death Valley. Let that die in Death Valley, and then they can live in that top 4 ranking that they've been given by the AP. So I'm really excited for this college football season. We start off the year with a bang. I'm talking about Texas versus Ohio State. We get to see Arch Manning under the bright lights. And let me tell you, I can't wait to see it. That will set the tone for the rest of the year for those two teams. Well, I take that back because I think both of those teams make the playoffs anyway. So I think that loss doesn't really mean much for either of those two teams. But what a way to start the year. Now, transitioning over to the big boys of the NFL. And I won't spend too much time here because there's a lot to get into. However, I really just want to focus on my Houston Texans because the Houston Texans last year, I would say in my own eyes and the eyes of many, probably underperformed in the sense of the regular season. And I know, what can you do about all of your receivers going down if you're CJ Stroud, right? I mean, you lose Nico Collins for a good portion of the year. You lose Stephon Diggs. You lose Tank Dell, right? So CJ Stroud really didn't have all that much to work with. And then on the offensive line, you lose some of those players to injury, right? And then Bobby Slowick, offensive coordinator, did not have his best year, right? So I'm looking forward to seeing what my Houston Texans can do. Will this be kind of a rebound year, so to speak? I mean, I know they won the wild card game against the Chargers, and let me just make a quick pit stop. I said this wasn't going to be long, but since I brought up the Chargers, one of my biggest pet peeves in NFL discourse has been the Justin Herbert discourse because, you know, I think it was from The Athletic that Mike Sando from The Athletic, he just released his quarterback rankings for the year, and Justin Herbert was ranked number 7, above, above Jalen Hurts, above CJ Stroud, above some of those other guys, right? The only people who were above him were Jaden Daniels, Matthew Stafford, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, and Patrick Mahomes. And here's my thing with Justin Herbert. Is he good? Is he talented? Absolutely. Does he throw a pretty ball? Does he have the physical tools of what a prototypical quarterback probably should be? Plus, he can move a little. Sure. However, the production does not match that at all. You know, I mean, we've seen this guy in the playoffs go up there and just lay eggs. You're up 27-0 over the Jacksonville Jaguars. You get walked down and you lose that game. You're going up against my Houston Texans, right? And I know we have a great defense in Houston, but you throw 4 interceptions. That's more interceptions than Justin Herbert threw the entire year. He threw more interceptions the game than he has the entire year. That is the definition of wetting the bed. So we have to slow down when it comes to Justin Herbert. I'm gonna be honest with you. That's one of the trains I might attach myself to throughout this season. I have to see more out of Justin Herbert before I can say he's top 10. And that will offend a lot of people, and I hope it did. However, back to my Texans. That defense has a very good chance at being the best defense in the NFL. I mean, one of the best corner duos with Derek Stingley, who is probably the second best corner in the league behind Pat Surtain. Then you got Kamari Lassiter over there who's coming off a great rookie season. Then you got a great edge rush duo with Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson. And then you know that the linebackers are going to fly to the ball with D'Amico Ryans calling the shots. So I'm looking forward to seeing what that defense can do. However, the question for the Texans is, what will the offense look like with Laramie Tunsil out at that left tackle position and a third-year C.J. Stroud, right? I think people rode C.J. Stroud a little bit too much last year. I think his year was still good despite the amazing rookie year he had. So I'm interested to see what this offense can do. And I think if they put it all together, don't sleep on my Houston Texans because, look, I'm sorry. Outside of the Bills, Ravens, and Chiefs, I don't see anybody who can really legitimately get in the way of the Texans. So that's been another episode of the In the Cut podcast. It's always good to be back. Look, like I say, we're going to be consistent. Your boy is jobless, looking for a job, to be honest. Looking for a job right now. So the only thing I can do is sit down and make podcasts about sports. So maybe that's what we're going to do. All right. So once again, thank you for listening. Be safe. Be blessed. We out of here.